Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And we're talking about Captain Marvel on International Women's Day.
Exactly.
8th of March.
Yeah, perfect day to release the film.
Spoilers are going to be coming up straight away. We're going to talk about everything. So yeah, we'll spoil the whole film. Go and see it. It's good, right? It's really good,
Yes.
So go and see it.
Actually, it's a wonderful way of beginning.
And I had a really, really good time. How about you?
Yes, I did as well. Actually, I thought some of the action sequences were thrilling. I thought the special effects really were amazing. It was very funny. The 3D was very impressively deployed as well. I love Jude Law.
He was buff. Big old arms on that boy.
Yes, but that wasn't what attracted me. I mean, what I thought was so interesting was he gives a really great performance. I think he gives the best performance in the film. But also he has these odd yellow eyes, which kind of obviously must have been digitally.
Do you reckon?
Yes, because I've seen him before, and he has like
no one has yellow eyes. Is my point. Of course, it was digital.
Yes,
he's an alien. Well, he plays an alien. Aliens have yellow eyes.
Right. Okay. I'd like to see proof that nobody has yellow eyes. I thought it was also a sign of jaundice that you got yellow eyes.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, okay. Sorry. Yeah, ill people have yellow eyes. Not yellow irises though. They have yellow eye whites.
Anyway, he had a very interesting look. I did notice actually also that Brie Larson's eyes seemed to change. Sometimes they were brown and sometimes they were blue.
Ah.
So I don't know what that's about, really.
I didn't notice that. I was looking at her blood. That kind of very importantly changes colour.
Yes. There were things that I didn't like, though, so maybe, get them out of the way. I love that the film has a female superhero, and actually I very much like the story and the way that the character is built and so on. But some of the sisterhood rah-rah stuff felt to me very heavy-handed.
I kind of agree, but there is less of that, I think, than you might kind of remember after the fact, because it's so. It feels like there's an International Women's Day cut of the movie almost. Where they had an extra sisterhood bit where she sort of sat down with the little girl and
I thought that was like, ugh.
There are a couple of bits that are overdone, but I think within the grander scheme of things, it's not very much. And I think actually it handles its kind of gender themes and politics quite intelligently and quite well.
It feels so much. That aspect to me feels so much by the numbers. So I don't want to do the film down because I'm very glad of it and it was hugely enjoyable and I think it's actually quite a good film. But there were the moments where you wanted some interpersonal human connection. I thought actually were some of the worst moments in the film, and I found them very heavy-handed. So when she returns back to Earth. Right, and discovers her relationship and that, she's best friends with, I forget the name of the character, yeah?
Maria
Rambeau. All those conversations to me felt so stiff, There
are elements of that. There's the one sort of empowering speech that Maria gives to Carol, saying, "This is who you are, you're the bravest person, the biggest person, the most impressive person I ever met," all that sort of stuff, which felt hugely by the numbers and was not nearly as inspiring as it wanted to be or kind of looked like it was.
Yes.
On the other hand, this scene in which they kind of sit at the table together for the first time in 6 years and start to kind of reconnect, I quite liked. And then when they go to the box of all of Carol's possessions that the young girl had saved and look through them, it's just a montage with just kind of old photos of them all being together and music playing over it. But I found that really moving.
Okay, I didn't find it moving, and then the little girl's attempt to get her mother to go on a mission.
Yeah,
I thought.
I
mean, that really felt kind of feminism by the numbers, but at the expense of a certain kind of humanity, right? I think people don't react like that. They don't say that. They don't go say, "Mom, go risk your life in outer space, otherwise I'll be ashamed of you." I mean, you know.
It was a bit of. I mean, it had a jokey aspect to it and a kind of nod and a wink delivery that I kind of liked, but it was pretty unimaginative. And it was actually like so. This is the first Marvel film I would say I've ever been looking forward to.
Oh, really?
And the reason for that is that I've always been very cynical about Marvel.
Oh.
I mean, back at the start when it was Iron Man and no one knew that Marvel was going to become this huge behemoth of cinema, I was just going, "Who the fuck's Iron Man?"
Right.
You know, and then it turned out it was very good and stuff. But I kind of became cynical about them quite quickly in that, and not in a particularly original way. Just going, "Here comes another one in the great panoply of blah blah." But then over the last year, obviously Black Panther was an absolute revelation. And also looking back, I basically went back and watched all of the Marvels, including the ones I hadn't seen before, and kind of started to find things in them that I really liked. And kind of as a unit, you know, as a universe, I kind of get it more now, and I find it quite entertaining. And I see, and particularly Thor Ragnarok, which I was very, very disparaging about, I think, when it came out, and now I see a lot of really good things, and I think it's a much, much better film than I first thought. So over the last year, I've started to appreciate Marvel a bit more and started to get it a bit more. And so I was really looking forward to this, because I was going, no, it's getting better now, actually, and I think I like it. Also, the fact that it was pissing off before it even came out all of these angry little guys who were so angry about you can't have it's all about women, and they were just getting so angry about it.
Amazing.
And they were trying to rate it sort of, what was it, on Rotten Tomatoes, they were putting these reviews on before it came out. And so Rotten Tomatoes said, no, we're not going to let you do that anymore. And then they started going, but my First Amendment rights.
It was to be an asshole.
So sort of on that basis, I was really looking forward to this, and I don't think I was let down. For the first 10 minutes or so, I was kind of disappointed, actually. Generally, the first 10 minutes I found kind of weak. And then once you got, because it's just kind of, you're on an alien homeworld. It's like the first couple of Thor movies, which weren't very good, where you're on an alien sort of planet, and you're just seeing them get along, and they training and all this sort of stuff, and it was really dull, frankly. And then once you got to Brie Larson, Captain Marvel, to what's her character's name? Vit. They call her Vers or Vers. She's captured by the Skrulls, and they kind of start digging into her memories.
Yes.
And there's a 3 or 4 minute sequence where you're jumping around in distant memories of her past, and seeing clips of her as a very little girl, seeing clips of this, that, and the other, and you hear the Skrulls saying, no, go somewhere else, we're not seeing it, all this sort of stuff, so they're looking for something. But what the film is doing there is really brilliantly giving you her backstory in... it's controlling the way it doles that information really, really well to kind of to suggest certain things. So, like, clearly she has a relationship with Earth because you see all these memories of her being on Earth in an Earth that you recognise. So she can't. So is she an alien? Is she not? Like, what's happening? And you start, and you get kind of enough of a sense of who she was to really build an interesting mystery.
Actually, I want to say a few things about that. So first, I don't quite agree with you. So I found the beginning of the movie really fascinating. I mean, it's true that the battle sequences with Jude Law, you know, they were kind of by the numbers, but there was all this imagery of her, you know, in this post-apocalyptic place, talking to the Annette Bening character, looking through the Annette Bening character. Yeah, and it's all kind of fractured, and it's kind of experimental, and you're not quite sure what's going on, but the visuals are amazing. Okay, the first moment where you see, you know, that energy strands weaving across her body, I mean, that just looks absolutely phenomenal. You know, I was thinking, my God, you know, so, and I think that's true of the film. So the scenes that you're describing, I think they're just kind of visually stunning, because what happens is that the image curves, right? So I
can't think what image you're talking about. What are you describing?
When she's being tortured and she's flashing back to the...
Yeah, that's when I said it was getting good. Before that, I found it very dull.
Well, no, so I'm talking before that, right. You're still seeing flashbacks of her at the beginning of the film that are very fractured. You don't know what's going on. You do see her with blue blood at the beginning. You see kind of the Annette Bening character. You see the Jude Law character coming towards her. I mean, you know, that's all at the very beginning of the film, and it's all kind of fractured, and you're not quite sure where it's coming from.
Yeah, the very first minute. Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought that was amazing. So there's that I just love the whole look of it, and then there's the bit that I'm talking about now, which is when she's being tortured and someone's in her mind and it's flashing forwards and backwards, but actually it's being visually cued to you because the top edge of the image kind of curves, and actually it kind of, it's such an elegant curve. There's something just about the way that the image looks that almost creates a feeling, and I thought that was wonderful.
I agree with you, but I don't actually think we're disagreeing, because
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just elaborating.
No, but you said you disagreed on the stuff before the torture.
Oh, because you said the first 10 minutes are boring. And
I think so, because what you just said is the first minute or two where you see that it starts off with this flashback of her waking up on this with this kind of in this plane crash, and then she wakes up because it's a bad dream that she's had. Basically, from the moment that she wakes up until she gets tortured, I thought there was nothing interesting in that. So like that first minute, I agree with you, that was great. And then it gets boring for ages. And then it gets interesting again once the mystery starts to be developed. And I think it's really interesting as well that I was thinking about how we're going to sort of talk about this without spoiling it. And actually, spoilers are an interesting thing in this film, because it's not like there's a moment of revelation where everything is explained.
I don't think it matters.
No, but I'm not talking about actually whether it matters, but it got me thinking about it. And it got me thinking about how the film is kind of giving out its information. And what you'll often find, even including in films like this, is the moment of explanation. This one has one in a way where she eventually gets back to the Annette Bening character, the super intelligence, and it is kind of fully revealed that this is what happened back in the day, and here's who kind of she really is. But even before then, like for instance, Ben Mendelsohn plays one of the Skrulls.
Yes.
And he's under an awful lot of makeup. He's under a big prosthetic green head, basically, so you can't recognise him. But I recognised his voice, and so did you.
Yeah.
We said to each other, that's Ben Mendelsohn. And then Ben Mendelsohn in human form turns up, and you're going, oh, that's Ben Mendelsohn.
Yes.
And I said, well, what that means is, having already established that the Skrulls can shapeshift, he's going to turn out to be a baddie.
Yeah.
So kind of... So then the revelation that Ben Mendelsohn is a baddie is kind of not a surprise, because you have been cued in by the fact he was already playing this guy. You can recognise through his voice. It's a very idiosyncratic voice.
Yes.
This thing about Captain Marvel, it turns out she's actually from Earth, then was taken, or kind of went through this wormhole to Kree, and then the reason that she has become... the reason that she's got blue blood is through a transfusion. The reason that she's got powers is because this explosion kind of Incredible Hulked her and gave her powers. But it's not that huge a surprise that she was from Earth, because you're being cued in very, very early to know that, because of this torture scene where you're seeing her on Earth from a very young age.
Yes.
So the point is that I think the revelations are more interesting than just, and now we know the truth, because you are being given dribs and drabs of information in really, really interesting ways to kind of help you. I just think it builds a really interesting mystery about who she is. This is coming from someone who have never read the comics.
Well,
so.
I think the mystery remains, because those last sequences, which really are superbly thrilling, I mean, it's just great cinema, when she realizes the full extent of her power, she absorbs, that energy thing, whatever it's called, the Tesseract or whatever the Tesseract. And, all of a sudden she could fly, and she could fly through space, and she's super strong, and, and the look of that, right, was just extraordinary. I mean, those were extraordinary action sequences. And that's when Miss Captain Marvel becomes, like, a really vivid character. And actually, I think it's a fault in Brie Larson's performance that the character only fully came alive and was exciting to me, once she became a CGI effect.
Yeah, I agree with that, unfortunately.
So, but anyway, it's a marvelous aspect of the film. Though, part of what you were saying about the mystery of it is it's still mysterious. I mean, I still don't really know what her powers were. I mean, you got the sense that, yes, she's absorbed something, but what is it? How does it channel? Yeah.
But the kind of the question of who she is now and what she's going to become is, that's left to develop. But I mean, the mystery of kind of what her past was and where she came from, I think is...
Her origin story.
Exactly, her origin and background is it's treated with a little more nuance and in a more interesting way than I might have expected.
Yes, well, the
storytelling around that, I think, is really strong.
Yes, I mean, clearly a lot of thought has been given to everything, you know, and some things work just amazingly well. I think the film is visually stunning, and the effects are stunning, and the use of the 3D is just smashing, really. You know, like, you can see how scenes have been designed with different depths of field, you know, which kind of actions take place in different things.
Different layers of depth.
Different layers of depth. So that even when things aren't, you know, crashing at you, you know, you're still seeing the 3D at work in really interesting ways. I love that.
Yeah. And it has a fantastic sense of humour. There's this wonderful interplay between Samuel L. Jackson and a cat.
Yes.
That, you know, I didn't know anything about, like I say, not read the comics or anything like that. I have no idea how deeply this is based on blah, blah, blah. But this cat pitches up, and it's basically Brie Larson's old cat from 6 years ago, before she lost all her memories. It shows up again and immediately forms a bond with Samuel L. Jackson, who is just going, "Oh, lovely little cat," which is basically the way I would treat it, you know. And he's supposed to be a professional, but then it keeps coming. I thought it would maybe just be there for a bit, but it remains this character throughout.
Yes,
and it actually ends up leading to the reason that he's got an eye
I
patch
still don't
on.
get the cat.
In what way?
Well, you remember at some point you said, "Oh, this is going to be a crawl." Yeah,
I thought it was going to be a scroll.
Or a scroll.
Because when they were looking through the records,
yes,
and they've kind of just met the cat again.
Yes, because the cat appears quite ominously.
It does.
Yeah, and so you're expecting something.
I was expecting the shapeshifters to have become the cat.
Yes, and then that doesn't quite happen. But the cat is some kind of monster.
Yeah, it's a joke in the film, essentially, I think, where it seems to be like it's almost like a guardian. The thing is, Annette Bening's character, she plays two characters essentially. She plays this doctor who came from Kree and was living on Earth and working on this light speed drive or something like that. It's a bit of a MacGuffin, but and then she also plays this super intelligence which appears to Brie Larson as Annette Bening, because it does that thing of appearing as the person you admire the most, right? So, but Annette, the doctor that she plays, must have brought this cat with her, because it's not a cat; it's a Fringagor or whatever they bloody call it, right. and the Ben Mendelsohn's character is terrified of it because he knows this isn't just a cat. It looks like a cat. It's played by a cat. Yes. Samuel L. Jackson is teasing him with it, and then of course the joke is ultimately, it turns out it's incredibly dangerous and has tentacles and will kill you.
Or it eats people.
It eats people. And you know that's what he's. And so when he's playing with the cat again and it scratches him in the face, he goes, "Well, that's not going to heal." And he's no eye from then on. I mean, I think it's great that this is the birth of Nick Fury, basically, birth of S.H.I.E.L.D. and birth of Nick Fury. It's set in about 1996, or 1997, whenever True Lies came out, basically. Cause
what did you make of the CGI to make Samuel L. Jackson?
I think for the most part, it's very, very good. And I mean, they use it throughout, because it's not like I remember at the start of Ant-Man they used it on Michael Douglas. And you go, they've used it for a scene, and now it's got to the point where they're using it for an entire film, and it's incredibly convincing. There is one or two points where it looks a bit plasticine-y, but for the most part I thought it was fantastic.
I mean, I thought for a while that they might have used another actor for a while. I mean, there were moments where I thought, oh, they've used another actor and they're just using Samuel L. Jackson's voice. And then you think, well, no, because the eyes, really. So I still think it's a bit odd. Yeah, it's not as expressive as Samuel L. Jackson is normally, though the voice and the wit and all of that is really there, and much welcome. But
yeah, well, he's 70 now, right? And in kind of de-aging him 25 years or more, wrinkles basically disappear.
But his face is also flushed.
Well, yeah, and kind of what disappears with all of that is a certain level of expression.
Yes,
that there is some of that lost. I agree. Yeah, it is a bit of a shame, but for the most part, I think it's really convincing, and I mean, it's clearly Samuel L. Jackson, and his performance does come through nonetheless.
Yes,
and
he's great,
and he's given a lot to do that's really funny. And like I say, I think it's great that this is a kind of, this works as Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D's, or the Avengers origin story, certainly, because right at the end you see him saying this is going to be called the Avengers Initiative, based on Carol Danvers' RAF nickname, not RAF, but whatever, US Air Force nickname. Which I think is kind of, it's quite fun, and maybe that's something that annoys the nerds even more, because they're like, you can't, this character that I've decided to hate, you're making her responsible for the thing I love.
Yes.
Which I think is great. Fuck them.
That's a great joke on them, actually.
I think so.
I mean, I think it's ridiculous. There's been female superheroines in comic books for the last 80 years or whatever. There's never been a problem with that. I mean, there's been a problem in their representation, how they're represented and how they're dressed, and, they can be really sexist or whatever, or, real kind of male fantasies. I think the film has done wonders, really, with the character, with the exposition of her character, with the exposition of her powers, with the way that she looks, with the powers that she's given, with her backstory, with the interrelationships. I think they've made it really kind of female-centric in interesting ways. So, in some ways, kind of the head villain really is the Annette Bening character. So I think kind of all of those things are really welcome. And it's a film that's as spectacular to watch and as kind of as it moves excitingly. The battle sequences, both, on Earth, like the train sequence, or in space, just her hurling after, the spaceships.
Yeah.
I mean, they were tremendously exciting,
I think True Lies is kind of name-checked in the film as quite deliberately. I mean, she when she comes to Earth, she lands in a Blockbuster video and thinking that she's seen an enemy, she blasts the head off an Arnold Schwarzenegger cardboard
James
cutout.
Cameron film, yes.
It's True Lies, isn't it?
Yeah,
she
it's
blasts
True
the head
Lies
off
with Jamie Lee Curtis.
That's right. And then the kind of sequence on Earth is like it has a certain mid-90s feel. Like I say, I think that train sequence is aping the kind of 90s action in a way. I think doing it really well. And it also has something of a 70s feel when you end up in the military kind of base where they're looking through old files and stuff in the records room. It has a kind of 70s conspiracy movie feel there, I think. Rather like I think it was the second Captain America film right. did. So I think it kind of it moves between these they're not different genres but flavors,
Yes.
Really nicely because then you end up in space and it's a full on sort of sci-fi.
But each moment is really kind of visually superb. I mean, those scenes were in the room with all the files and the way that the lights go on and off, and how there's this kind of perspective kind of created.
One perspective.
Yeah, all of that it just looks smashing.
I think it looks really, really good. And I think in terms of the developments and construction of the character, this is although I said this is the first Marvel film I've really wholeheartedly been looking forward to, which is true. I think, in a similar way to you, apprehensive about what would be by the numbers, or things that I expected to be by the numbers in terms of gender representation, particularly. This is kind of, it's a Me Too world where we're trying to be very, very right on and kind of aware of our audiences and this sort of thing. And so you're going like, this is one of the things that these angry trolls really were responding to. It's the idea that like they're just going to make this movie for women. Yeah, that's what they meant. But the stuff that you pointed out about some of the sisterhood moments, they were a couple of those. As I say, I agree with you. I think they are too artificial, too shoehorned in. They're not organic enough.
They feel a kind of a right-on tick boxing.
They do a bit, but some of the stuff really kind of exceeded what I expected as well. And I think Annette Bening's character, the super intelligence version of it, the super intelligence that she plays, I think she's fantastic. I think she's sexy and she's got shit loads of attitude, and I mean she basically is doing the kind of smart talking villain,
yes,
who like always has something to say, and then she's got this added thing as the super intelligence of you can't hurt me because I'm the super intelligence, and her eyes, I mean, again they've done something to her eyes to make them kind of pierce, but I mean she uses them brilliantly, and I think she's got so much attitude and style in the way she moves. I think she's fucking brilliant.
I think she is as well.
And then in the scene in which she is fought back against, and Captain Marvel realizes her own power and breaks out of this world that she's been. She thinks she's. superintelligence thinks she's going to be able to just keep her there forever. She breaks out and fights back. You see her in the real world break out of these kind of fluid chains and glow. And that was, I mean, felt properly, truly heroic.
Yes.
And it was a great moment of this kind of character realising herself and becoming who she is.
And the effects are just so extraordinary to watch. And particularly, you know, I mean, there's just a striking and imaginative and in some ways, or as original as one felt when reading the comic book panels. But actually, with the added thing that these are all in movement and they're moving and it's beautiful. You know, it's just extraordinary. Some of the sequences, I think, you know, to kind of be able to do that now. I mean, the combination of CGI and animation, it's just extraordinary. I think they're so beautifully realized. I mean, even when her hands are in chains, you know, just the possibility of making them glow like hot iron, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the way that that's visualized is just fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the film thematically mines some similar ground to Thor Ragnarok, and actually goes further. And I think it's really clever. It's got real stuff to say. So in Thor Ragnarok, we talked about how the sister character that comes back, played by Cate Blanchett, is talking about the kind of dirty past of Asgard. That this place that's you know, kind of beautiful sort of heaven for all the Thor people. You know, it's not all it's cracked up to be. And there's those scenes in which, well, one scene in particular, in which she reveals that these old kind of paintings on their Sistine Chapel are masking a much dirtier truth about where Asgard's power and kind of dominance came from. Basically saying, like, this place has a murky past, you know. And this film does something not just similar, but even bolder, which is that the enemies that you see at the start, the Skrulls, who are your very typical alien enemies with big green heads, and they can shapeshift. I mean, it has an element of kind of like the Red Scare, like your enemy could be anyone, sort of thing. They turn out to be refugees, basically.
Yes.
There's a more than a hint of a kind of Israel-Palestine thing going on, where they are persecuted by the Kree, and the reason that they fight is that they need they have nowhere to live.
Yeah, they've taken over their territory,
and the few that are left, given the chance, the Kree will commit genocide to.
Yes. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way, actually. But yes, I can see how it fits.
And there's this thing about this orbiting space station that the Doctor had. They discover it. They find out where it is. It's invisible, so they find it. And it turns out that on this spaceship, she's been hiding and providing refuge to all of these Skrulls who are, you know, they're wearing rags. They're kind of broken up families. I mean, the whole part of the thing is that Ben Mendelsohn's character finally gets his wife and child back. Yes. This thing about separated families.
Yes.
And then it's about
and that's blended into the narrative really well. So, you know, the fact that what starts off as the enemy, you know, and then actually ends up being the victim. It takes quite a while for that to filter through, and it's dramatized very interestingly and very smoothly. Yeah,
and you spend a lot of time not quite believing it, as the characters do. So, you know, there's the opening kind of few scenes on Earth in which the Skrulls are hiding as Earth people, and they are very typical. You think these are just the villains. They're hiding in plain sight. You don't know who they are, and you need to fight. You need to hunt them down and fight them, basically. And then they have this conversation at the house in Louisiana, where this other side comes out. Captain Marvel realizes that there may be more to this than she thinks, but it's not entirely sure. So they kind of go, we'll go along with you, but we're going to hold the cat in your face the whole time just to freak you out because we're not sure if you're telling them. And so it's very gradual. And by the end, you really understand this is the truth. So it goes further than Thor Ragnarok, because Thor Ragnarok sort of says, Asgard has this dirty past, but it's still our home, it's still Asgard. And what Captain Marvel ends up saying is, I'm going to come back to Hello, or I think it's called Hello, something like that, the Kree homeworld, and burn it down. That's what she says. You know, you don't like that's the end of the film, so you don't see her going off to do that. But that's what she's going to do. She's going to help the Skrulls find a new home, and she's going to come back and fight everyone from her kind of adopted homeworld.
Anyway, there's a very interesting thing in the film about families and about alternative families, and you know, something that's not made very clear is what her situation with her own family was. So, you know, you get the sense that, you know, her father was very driving, but also kind of rejecting, really. So on the one hand, you know, proving to him that she could do things that he said she couldn't do is a driving element. But for example, you don't say anything about her mother or siblings or, right? But there is that phrase that...
Maria says, "We became your family," right?
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
You know, so kind of that aspect I thought was quite interesting as well. I mean, the film is trying to be very woke. That's
no, I kind of agree. But I think in some respects it really achieves it.
Yes, I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Though I do wish it would have been dramatized a bit better, those elements.
Well, let me give you one aspect where I think it was dramatized really well, which is the... again, it's this kind of climactic scene in which she fights back against the superintelligence, where you see all these clips that you've seen of her before in flashback of being a little girl and kind of, or being an army cadet. She tries to jump from rope to rope and she falls, and she gets in a go-karting accident and she falls off her bike and all this. And then in this climactic moment, you see all these scenes and she says, "What makes me human is that I get up every time." And she doesn't say that. It's just shown. You see, she gets up, and then as Captain Marvel, she gets up and faces the superintelligence again.
Yes.
And I think that's drama, and that is a kind of aiming at female empowerment, basically.
Yes.
That's showing, you know, all these little girls who will be watching themselves on screen getting up and fighting again. I think that's like completely heading for that kind of box ticking thing, if you like. But I think it achieves it brilliantly and it dramatizes it beautifully, and I felt it. You know,
I think the film is also really interesting in terms of like this doubling of the villains, right? So, you know, because there is like this trope of, you know, you always have like some man training this woman into being a superhero, right? And actually, it's very interesting that in this, you know, the man who you think is fulfilling that role, which is Jude Law, you know, is not the person who helps her be a hero. It's actually like the villain, right? So that kind of transformation is interesting, and then that's doubled kind of by the Annette Bening character as well. You know, which is you know, both villainous and good.
Yeah. Because she's playing two roles.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and of course, Miss Marvel has to fight them both. Or Captain Marvel has to fight them both. So all of that was very, very interesting. Yeah, I enjoyed it very much. Actually, it's almost like I want to see it again, really. You know,
I don't know if I go back to cinema to see it again. I know you found it visually spectacular.
I did.
I don't know if I'd go back to cinema to see it again, but I would definitely watch it again because I think it's enormously entertaining, incredibly witty.
Yes.
You know, tons and tons of laughs, and the audience was really receptive.
Yes, when we came out, I asked you because, you know, I just wanted to double check my own perceptions, and really, you felt the audience was, you know, with the film the whole way, and the film was really, I would say, 80% kind of
nerdy
geeky
males.
men. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
nerdy
you know,
guys.
this whole Twitter storm about the Rotten Tomatoes thing. It's like you wonder who are those people really anyway. But you know, they clearly don't matter, right?
It's
like,
always a very, very angry minority. Although I did say to you as well, like I think those people are so they're so self-righteous and they so believe in their own importance that when they say I'm boycotting this, I think they really believe it, and so chances are they're not going to show up all that much. Like the audiences that see it will be the audiences that want to see it.
Yeah, and who cares about them? Because
Exactly.
you know, I can imagine this being a really, really big hit. And it's a really welcome film because it's the first Marvel film that stars, you know, kind of a female superhero. So, or superheroine, I forget, you know, I don't know what the correct term is now. But anyway, you know, that's marvelous to see. And to give Marvel credit, you know, they have done a really good job. It's a super production, right? Like, you do get the feeling that no effort or expense has been spared. It just looks fantastic, you know, and all the CGI work, all the production values that you expect of a film of this kind are there, including the bloody Stan Lee cameo, which, you know...
Well, they really went for it because he obviously
They
passed away.
dedicated the film to him.
They dedicated the film to him right at the start as well.
Yes.
So in the Marvel logo, which is a kind of... it's that thing of the comic book pages all flapping and turning over each other. All of the characters in that opening, in that ident, are now Stan Lee.
I hated that.
And then it says, "Thank you, Stan."
Okay.
Ugh.
The thank you, Stan, I don't mind. You know, because if Stan Lee helped, these comic books turn into movies, that's a good thing. But actually, you know, this idea that Stan Lee is Marvel is such an insult, you know, to all the great kind of writers and inkers and, you know, kind of all of the people who really kind of, you know, conceived of those heroes and drew them and dramatized them and inked them and colored them, you know, to reduce all of that, all of those wonderful efforts by all those brilliant people to just Stan Lee is so offensive.
And when his actual cameo in the film comes up, he's sat on the train while Captain Marvel's trying to work out which one of these people is a Skrull in disguise. And he's sat behind a newspaper talking to himself, and then he pulls the newspaper down and smiles at her, and she does this kind of knowing smile back, and you go, ugh.
Yes.
But I think part of the is not just the Stan Lee, oh, we all know him sort of thing, but it's that I don't think Brie Larson really sells it, and I think she sells too little in the film. I think her performance is a problem. I think her lack of charisma is a problem.
I think the lack of charisma is a problem. And it's very strange because she's very beautiful and in some ways she's very good. Yeah. But, you know, she's not a star.
It really feels that way.
It really does. You know, unlike Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman, you know, who's so charismatic and, you know, and everything. Here, I mean, as I said, it is telling that the character becomes at its most exciting once the human factor diminishes and the CGI takes over. You know, when she gets all her full powers at the end and she's wearing that mask, and really she is like a CGI effect, really, at that point. Then zoom, the character seems to come alive in a different way. Whereas, her on her own, it's just, it's good enough, but it's not really good.
She's got about 3 facial expressions, which is kind of rugged determinedness, and then a smirk, and then kind of a bit of a knowing sort of wink with Nick Fury occasionally.
And her comic timing is terrible. You know, so she's kind of making all these jokes, right? And kind of it all depends on a certain rhythm. And, I mean, it's not that they're complete duds or that she fails at it constantly. You know, but Samuel L. Jackson arrives, and in 3 lines, he gets like 3 laughs and sets a rhythm and, you know, brings the whole scene alive. And, you know, she's been bantering with Jude Law for like 20 minutes and hasn't achieved half of the effect.
Well, like I said, that first 10 minutes, I think that's one of the reasons it's very dull, because it's really trying to do that in that fight scene between them.
Yeah.
It's trying to do that, and it doesn't.
Yeah, and I think it is her fault, not, you know.
Which is why I would also disagree that Jude Law gives the best performance in the film. So I don't think he's bad, but I think
he's great.
I think the best performance in the film is Samuel L. Jackson's. He's the most alive, despite the fact that he's under 25 years of digital de-aging. His is the most alive and kind of interesting and, in some respects, complex. Ben Mendelsohn's also very good underneath all of that makeup and all the prosthetic head. Yeah, you know, you feel his kind of sense of loss. And
the thing is, you have these great actors because, you know, so basically here we're talking about Annette Bening, Samuel Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, and I would include Jude Law with what he's given to play. I think they're all very good and they're really charismatic and they bring a charge when they're in there. And yet, you know, she doesn't. She's not bad, but she doesn't seem like a star. She doesn't kind of bring a charge or an attraction or an appeal. And actually, you see that at the end so clearly because, you know, they have that. It's not quite the Easter egg, but
it's a mid-credit scene.
You know, where kind of Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans,
Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo. They appear and boom, it's like your eyes light up, right?
Yeah, it's a mid-credit scene which is setting up the second half of the Infinity War duo. where they're watching the the count of living organisms deplete rapidly, following the snap, and they're trying to work on these problems, and they're going, what's happening, and they go, this super pager, what's going on with it, who's it calling, and the camera swivels around and there she is, and you go, oh.
Well, I didn't quite go like that, but there was a sense that like they only need to appear and you're already charged up for them, kind of when Brie Larson appears, she's got to do something. She doesn't carry just her own. But on the positive side, I think this is a film that young girls will love.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And actually, there hasn't been a film kind of made for them yet, really. So I think this is kind of like a wonderful
in this space,
in this vein of filmmaking.
Exactly.
This is a wonderful development and a very successful one. So I would recommend. I think people will really enjoy it, and I highly recommend it.
Mm. In the kind of duo of super woke Marvel films, I would say it falls below Black Panther in terms of.
But Black Panther wasn't heavy-handed with it.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at, basically. In terms of the kind of the way it treats its quote unquote right on themes or right on subject matter, it is far less predictable. And actually, what I think Black Panther was really brilliant at is that it didn't really care what the white audience's kind of entry point was into talking about Africa and African diaspora and black experience. And this is like everyone could understand this.
I thought, to me, some of those things felt like a sitcom comedy's smug superiority talking down to an audience, about the way things should be. I mean, it was just really badly done.
Yeah, it's all topped off with Brie Larson
feeling smug.
Yeah, giving a knowing smile to the young girl.
Yes, exactly.
I agree with that.
So anyway, but let's wrap it up here. So I
really recommend it. I think it's very, very good.
Did it live up to your expectations?
Yeah, and like I said, in some ways exceeded them, because I thought it would be less successful at doing anything intelligent with its gender theme or gender dynamics than it is. And I think actually you can see the box ticking, but some of it is really, really successful.
Okay, great. So a film that exceeded expectations. I kind of agree with that as well. So thank you very much for listening. We are Eavesdropping at the Movies, and we are on...
We are on SoundCloud, YouTube, and iTunes to listen to. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter at Eavesdrop Movies. And eavesdroppingatthemovies.com is the website where you can listen to all the episodes. Yeah.
Good. Okay, excellente. Goodbye.
Post-credit scene.
Eavesdropping at the Movies Easter egg.
We forgot to mention this in the main one, and before I leave Jose's flat, remember to bring it up. One of the reasons that it's so funny, one of the ways it mines so much comedy, is through its 90s setting.
Yes,
it has some brilliant jokes based on 90s kind of. I mean, like blasting Arnold Schwarzenegger's head off for one thing,
yes. But
then it has so much great stuff with Windows.
Yeah,
kind of putting a CD in and waiting 2 minutes to open up a file. It has this great sequence where it's a black box recording of Carol Danvers' last few minutes on Earth, basically, and they're going to learn so much stuff from this, and it cuts from character to character to character, and the tension ramps up, and it just doesn't load yet.
Yes.
It's great. And it got loads of laughs from the audience as well.
Well, and part of the joke is that it takes about 2 minutes to load up, and then the message is just 10 seconds.
Yeah. And doesn't actually have much information they need.
But they do that also with Blockbuster, and they do that also with Radio Shack.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you have communications technology in this planet? Cut Radio Shack.
Yeah.
I mean, that was all kind of very funny. And they do it also with, what is it, the beeper, where
pager.
The pager. Yes.
Is the latest in two-way communications technology.
Yes.
And then she beats it up at the end. And of course you recognise that from the end of... Well, if you watch the post-credit sequence in Infinity War, it was about him getting the beeper out and paging Captain Marvel.
Yes.
So it kind of shows up again.
I also thought that the soundtrack was very interesting because, of course, it is very much a 90s soundtrack. But it seemed to me to be very much a British 90s soundtrack. Yeah, so, I mean, the only... well, I suppose there's Hole. Hole is in it. And No Doubt is American. But, of course, they were so big here. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Because I think Garbage also... but I suppose Garbage could be American, really. I don't know. I can't
remember. Garbage. Yeah, they're American from Wisconsin.
Okay, so there you go. I was wrong.
Shirley Manson is Scottish, but the band is American.
So I was wrong about it all. They're all 90s bands. I was right about that.
There's Salt and Pepper, Elastica, Garbage, R.E.M.
Elastico, I think, was British.
Yeah, I think so. TLC.
No, TLC is obviously American. Salt and Pepper's American.
Des'ree.
I don't know.
Think Des'ree's American. Nirvana, No Doubt.
Okay, so I take it back. It's all these, top 10 American indie-ish type bands that broke through.
Well, it's a good soundtrack. And of course it's got that thing of the joke. I mean, it does a kind of Terminator 2 joke where she's been catcalled by the guy on the Harley. And then she walks out with his clothes and rides up on his bike. He's like, "I want your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle."
Yes.
But then, what's his name? Fury says, the grunge look works for you. So
Well, actually, the image to that was fantastic because it's like she's holding a newspaper, and it's like
the corner comes down. She puts the corner down.
She puts the corner
to give
down,
him the side eye.
But it's almost like a German expressionist film where her shadow over the newspaper kind of creates a distorted figure. So
actually, it's a map, isn't it? It's a huge map.
Yeah. So she's not just a pretty girl. She's a pretty girl with like this bendy shadow. Yeah, that frames her, or that frames her. Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant image.
Yeah.
Alrighty, that's it. That's it for our Easter egg. Easter's over.